From Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation. The MisFitNation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the MisFitNation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome to the MisFitNation presents the ToosDay Crue with Jake and Steve. Now put your hands together as they welcome their guests to the 399th show. Pump it up, boys.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you, Rich.
And he let me in the room. Look at that.
Hey, it's show 399. That says a lot about our founder and senior executive producer, Rich LaMonica. He's been doing the show for quite a while. It's a great show. We've got a great guest for this evening. And how's things over on the East Coast, Stephen?
Warm. And that's it.
Warm and that's it. Okay. Well, we got about the same thing going here. Hey, without any further ado, let's introduce our guest. Oh, well, hey, I didn't even get a chance to read any of your bios, Stephen, but I'm going to talk a little bit about you. Stephen Russell, you're a former U.S. Army Airborne Infantryman. Got about a decade of service, served over in Iraq in Bakuba. You've wrote books. I'm gonna let you talk about the books and everything and what they're all about. We've got links to them for everybody. I tell you what, I'll shut up and why don't you just go ahead? Thank you, Stephen. I'll let you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jake, for allowing me on here to talk about my projects, my books, and art. It's been quite the journey. I guess as far as the military background, I enlisted in 2004. Okay. Fresh off the Iraq invasion. And I did my first active duty tour from 04 to 08. And that's where I deployed to Iraq, Bakuba, in 2006 to 2007. One of those nice, long, extended deployments there. And got out, did a little stint in the National Guard, didn't like it, went back active duty by 2012. And, that's when I got all my airborne stuff under my belt. And got out then in 2017. So combined total, I think I have like 10 years, under my belt. And once that was done, it was time to start looking at different things, start going back and looking at old stuff and going on that journey, and that's part of the book that I wrote, the memoir about Bakuba. It's been a 15-year long journey, and it was one of those things that while we were going through it, we realized that this was something different, that this was something exceptional that we were experiencing. And I was, I guess, cohesive at the time to take a few pictures and write down notes and kind of have some things for later recollection when I could go back, and that really helped, starting that process and heading down that path. But it took quite some time, quite a bit of living, and going through stuff before I figured out what I wanted to say about that deployment and how I wanted to present that to people, because it was a pretty intense deployment. We had 12 guys in our company die, and our battalion took some of the heaviest casualties during that deployment. So okay. It was pretty intense, and it's one of those where a lot of there's a lot of conversation surrounding Iraq within the veteran community, but there's not much conversation within American society.
No, there's not.
Yeah, I kind of think of it like the Korean War. I have a legacy veteran in my family, Paul Gunn, and his father, also Paul Gunn, was nicknamed Pappy Gunn in World War II. He was a Navy fighter pilot, and his family got captured in the Philippines and was put in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. And Yeah, it's another piece of like American war history that we don't really focus on. A lot of people focus on the European front and things that happened there, but
Hmm.
you don't hear much about Midway and all these things that were going on during the Pacific theater. But it was my Uncle Paul, his experiences in that POW camp that caused him to join the Army during the Korean War. And it was just this kind of like piece of American history that no one talked about. You'd hear about your granddad in World War II. My dad was in Vietnam. I had uncles in Vietnam, but Korea was just kind of this thing that kind of got passed over, and it feels like Iraq is like on that same level, because when you start talking to people, they just really don't have any reference for it.
It's kind of like they know it happened, but they, other than what they've seen on the news, they don't know anything about it.
That's your clue right there. It's only what the news tells them.
That's right.
And what they want you to know.
Yeah.
Hey, we did this today, but 8,500 other things happened, but we're going to talk about this over here.
Yeah. And two, even, our time in Iraq was already confusing enough and chaotic enough, not just with the mission that was going on and the things that we were trying to do and getting told and changed on a daily basis, but you had, PSYOPs missions ran both ways on us and on the enemy, and there was just so much chaos going on all the time. So it's you'll get so many different stories, and some contradict each other, and things go this way and that way, and it's just kind of like one of those things you have to parse through. So I figured our story was exceptional enough to tell, and I wanted to tell it from my perspective, a lower enlisted soldier, and from that point of view, because we've got more than enough movies from Navy SEALs and these guys and all these amazing people, but it's the guys on the ground that made all this work.
Yes, and like you said, we've got all these movies and stories from Navy SEALs and all the people with nice looking hair and all that stuff. And
yeah. That was the joke in selection when I went through the selection process. I didn't make it. I 19 non-select, but they always joke the difference between a Navy SEAL and a Special Forces operator is the Navy SEAL has to take a creative writing course.
I like that. Hey, first of all, thank you for your service. I try to tell everybody that no matter how long they served, thank you for your service and what you did for our country. But I want to jump off and talk about Tales of Nihilism.
Yeah. So Tales of Nihilism, that is my comic that me and my writer, we publish digitally on Global Comics. And we also, do print editions for conventions when we go to those. That brainchild is also a part of this like cathartic journey that I've been going through for the last decade, and it really kicked off when I exited the military the second time, and I found myself in this place where it was like I don't know where I want to go. I kind of just had this like open space, and I decided to kind of like reconnect with parts of myself that I had let go during the military, which was a lot of the artistic and creative, side of myself. And I was like, well, I got out of the military. I'm just sitting around, going to work, going through that daily grind, and just kind of being like, is this it? Is this, what it's going to be? And I picked up a paintbrush, started painting again with Bob Ross and things like that. And then, the juices started flowing, and I was like, well, I've been through so much, and I think I can use my art and take this and kind of like capture those stories and those feelings that we have as veterans and turn that into something. And so, yeah, there's a lot of lived experience in this comic. There's a lot of turning things on their heads and different perspectives. And that's really kind of what I wanted to focus on is, instead of making another comic about fantasy or superheroes or sci-fi, I wanted to tell relatable stories and have things that, we're talking about the culture and society and all the things that we're going through.
Okay. All right. Now, is it for our listeners out there that might subscribe to it online? Does it have to come with a parental warning, or is this pretty much anybody can read it?
It's older teenage to adult range,
okay,
and stuff like that. Global
So
Comics
it's a graphic
is
novel.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't want your kids, reading it, but it's Global Comics is a great location for us because they don't have any editorial oversight on what you do. They really appeal to that independent creator. So as long as you stay within, legal guidelines on their site and stuff like that, you're free to post what you want. And so it's been a great place to tell this story.
Okay. And I guess if anybody has ever looks at At Ease magazine, they might also know you as the Salty Skipper.
Yeah. I've been doing a nice little illustration, some sequential art in At Ease Veteran magazine. It's been real fun. Christine's got that space for veterans so that we can share our stories and art and stuff like that. And I really jumped on that opportunity because I saw it when I was getting out of the military the second time, where a lot of military culture, was kind of dying out. These, you're always talking about the old army, the old school army, and back in the day, and these kind of things. And there were these like cultural aspects that I saw when I first came in the military, and it kind of like the tail end to see like that old school army, and then going back in and seeing all of it, and it was just kind of like gone to the wind. And their whole, groups of soldiers who joined up and they have no clue about these things. They're completely out of the loop. And I was like, well, I can use this space to illustrate, cadences that we did in the military.
All right. I want to talk a little bit about your book, Troublemakers, and enlighten us with a couple stories out of there, or one that you think might be interesting for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start off especially with the title, Troublemakers, the greatest dog and pony show in Iraq. Everybody in the military, they've heard of the dog and pony show, and it was definitely a term that got thrown around a lot. But the reason I named it Troublemakers was not just because that was our platoon name in Iraq, but we were coined Troublemakers because everyone in the platoon had at least one Article 15 under their belt.
Nice.
So that tells you the character of the guys. This is like the Magnificent Seven, the Dirty Dozen, that kind of group of guys.
Future Sergeant Majors.
Yeah. You got to have the 3 Ds, right?
That's right.
The divorce, the DUI, and the
That's
and the
right.
Article 15. Yeah. Oh yeah, but it took those type of people. It took that mindset to get the job done. It's not this. I always kind of describe the new army as being real corporate, real sanitized, and kind of focused in that direction of trying to keep things real PR friendly and having that face. If you can slap it on a lunchbox or, sell it, that's what the Army likes nowadays. And Troublemakers, we weren't that. We weren't the Captain America guys. Most of the guys, if you looked at our ERBs and records, you'd be like, these, yeah, they're a bunch of trouble. So we took what we had, and they put us in a area of operations in Bakuba. And even though we were stationed out at Fob Warhorse, we didn't spend much time there. We took over a IP station and an embassy and things like that, and we lived out with the people of Iraq. And I think that point of view, that reference that I had of being able to interact with people like that in the, living amongst them, it gave me a completely different mindset and angle to like see things through.
Okay. Hey, we got a question real quick. He said he was in Operation Arrowhead Ripper and Lightning Hammer in Bakuba with 38th Engineer Company, and he was asking what sector you were in.
So yeah, we were mostly in Old Bakuba and Tahrir. That was our main deal. And yeah, we went through Operation Arrowhead Ripper, all that. It's actually right about this time or a little bit later that I think that big push went.
Mm-hmm.
But for the longest time, the Cav was out in that sector in Diyala, alone, and we were just holding it down. And it wasn't until right around this time where they were like, "Hey, these guys actually might need some support," and start sending them some help out there. And we had 520 regiment, battalion, brigade, I can't remember. They came in, assisted us, and helped kind of like clear up the AO, because most people don't even realize during that time when we first entered Iraq, al-Zakari had just been ousted from Al-Qaeda, and that kind of like hit the hornet's nest and made that entire AO just blow up. Everything went crazy, and there was a civil war in Iraq. You had the Sunni and Shia going at each other, and then on top of that, they thought, there's not enough chaos. Let's create these concerned local nationals. They changed the name like 10 times on what they were called, but they're basically, armed guards that were from the neighborhood. Most of them were criminals, and they were like, here's a AK, here's some money, and guard your own neighborhood. And then they turned around and ended up acting like thugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was just, day in, day out, you're just like, what are we going to deal with today?
Yeah, I completely understand. So what's now you talking about when you first got out and everything, did you take time to like, how was your decompression period? Did you just jump into a job, or did you take a little bit of time off for you, or how'd you deal with that?
Well, I didn't get much time, and the first time I left the military was a completely different experience than the second time. They've improved a little bit, since way back when. But the first time it was like, man, here's your DD-214, get out of here. You're done with the Army. We're done with you. Go to college. I don't know, something, right? And that's what I was like. Okay, go back to Houston, Texas, and sign up for college. People kept saying, hey, do something medical. Everybody makes money in medical. So I went through EMT school, only to find out you don't make shit. You make shit money as an EMT.
Yes.
Once I'm going through the program, I'm like, now I find out, And I would say within a month of getting out of the military, I had a small retail maintenance job, and Hurricane Rita came in, leveled Houston, ripped the wall off my apartment, and just completely turned my life upside down. And it was that first. I think that's the first time I like really felt alone. And I was just like, there's no platoon to go to. There's no squad leader. There's nothing here. You got to make it, at this point. And there were things like that occurring over the time that were kind of like refocusing my perspective, because you get out, you just get back from Iraq, where you're going through hot combat and crazy things every day, and then now you have to humble yourself so that you can make a living, you can eat, you can do all these things. I remember my first interview with the hiring manager, and I'm going through here like, oh yeah, I've got 4 years in the military, infantryman, I've got a Purple Heart, honorable discharge, all this kind of stuff. And he was like, yeah, so in other words, all you have is a high school education.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you start to see all these things. You're like, oh, okay, I'm just another guy now. This is how it is. And it sucks, but at the same time, part of it is humbling enough to kind of like refocus you. Some people, that's a lot harder to get past and to get over. But I think it was good to like go through those things and kind of like recenter myself.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, we got a couple more questions here. One is from Lynn Johnson. And it's like, were you into writing prior to service? And then who was your mentor, and where do you see yourself with writing and art in the next 5 years?
Yeah. So I was never like really into writing specifically. I would definitely, I've always been like a voracious note taker, and I've been well read. I was the kid going to the library in, 3rd, 4th grade, picking out The Hobbit and things like that. And just like, reading all these books that all the teachers are like, hey, that's a bit above your level there. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to read it, But the one thing I was always into was art, theater, art, and that kind of expression. And I picked up, when I was in elementary school, a book, Stan Lee's How to Draw Comics, and I made that my Bible. I practiced everything in there until I could draw every picture in there the way they had it, do all the inking projects, learning about like comic design and stuff like that. So yeah, that was kind of my my pathway there when I first started doing art, and then once I joined the military, it was, there was a creative part of me that would come out occasionally. I'm doodling, any chance I had to do any sort of like design stuff, I'm doing that. I drew like a combat monkey on my gunner shield until the sergeant major saw it and made me take it down. Things like that. Combat monkey had a big old cigar and a machine gun. It's like all that kind of stuff. But it's not something I really invested in. It's not like I was practicing and drilling and stuff like I do now.
Okay. All right.
Next question. May I, Jake?
Go ahead, man. Jump in here anytime you want to.
Thanks. From Rachel Demon on X. While in theater, what was your worst day and your best day?
Yeah. So my worst day was actually when one of my very close brothers, he died, Eric Seeger. We were out there in Bakuba at the COP, and their Bradley slipped off, in the Tigris River and fell upside down, and he drowned to death. And we had to be out there on the ground doing recovery ops, and we had one of our good buddies. He jumped in the Tigris River, threw off all of his gear, and he was jumping in there trying to save him and everything. But, he couldn't unlock the back hatch and, all that kind of stuff. So Seeger ended up drowning to death. But the whole time, I was in the machine, heavy weapon squad, and we were having to pull security on that whole operation and cordon it off and do security. And it took a lot out of me to sit there and focus on that and not, veer off to what was going on. Because, you've got to focus on that mission. You have to focus on what's in front of you at the time, because if you slip, then, something can happen, and now it's even worse, And, yeah, I mean, that was a heavy day, but, I would have to say, best day in sector in Iraq, was the day I met, David Petraeus. And so, we had been doing the combat outpost, and we were living, like a bunch of savage animals out there and all that. And he came out to see what we're doing. And out of all the OPs, I'm sitting on my OP. David Petraeus comes up with his entourage, and I didn't know what to do. I'm, PFC Russell at the time, and just like, okay. So I start, anxiously explaining my sector. I was like, hey, here's my weapons card. I built this for the area. And, oh, if you see over there, sir, that building, we get shot at like every other day from over there. And David Petraeus with the soft cap leans underneath my blast shield and looks exactly where I just told him we get shot at like every day. And it flashed through my head. I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to die on my OP. The whole army's going to hate me. Oh my God. And I grabbed him and jerked him away from, my OP window, and his whole entourage just like jumped on top of me. And they're like, he's assaulting the general. Just jumped on top of me. I'm pretty sure even his combat camera got like a few kicks and stuff. But, he picked me up off the ground. He had, grabbed my hand. He picked me up off the ground, and he told me something that I have lived by ever since then. And he was like, son, you can always check up. It's okay to check up. And, from that, there's so many people that are afraid to do that, and afraid to, say, hey, when you're right, you're right. And, sometimes you got to think about people's safety and the security of what you're doing instead of decorum.
Yes. Looking around, see if we get enough questions here. Just popped up. With the sunsetting of the M4, M16 family of weapons and introduction of the new XM7, you got any thoughts coming back or getting close to it again?
Oh, no. I'm definitely, down for the count as far as going back in.
Also, third time's not the charm.
Yeah. I guess if it gets crazy heavy, but I'm definitely an old, M16. M4s were actually like the newfangled thing when I came in. So when I went through basic training, we all, qualified on M16s with iron sights and all that kind of stuff. And even when I went back in, if there was a way to keep it old school, I always tried to do that.
All right. Please, if anybody's got any questions or anything, go ahead and type them in and send them to him. We can get them to Stephen. I do want to mention Sergeant Bill Hooser, the Santaquin Police Department in Utah, in to watch May 5th. On this show, we really respect our officers, firefighters, and veterans, and we just wish his family peace, and they're in our prayers.
I hear you, and I'll throw my own shout out as well. Our medic, Doc Dan Nguyen, tomorrow is actually his death anniversary, and he died protecting our lieutenant at the time. He got shot in the ambush that I was in as well, and that's where I got my Purple Heart. And yeah, our lieutenant got shot in the ribs, and he ran out to go rescue him, and ended up getting shot in the neck and bled out and died.
Sad day. Stephen, I'll let you take this next question.
Oh, from MisFitNation. Being from Staten Island, are you actually Jersey or a piece of New York?
Neither. I'm neither. I have always been what I'd like to say. I've got gypsy blood in me. I like to travel. That was the one joy of the Army. You know, let me go to 30 different countries. I've lived in 5 different countries, and I've seen at least 2/3 of the United States. But I was born in Dallas, Texas. So, like my dad always tells me, he's like, son, you don't have to root for the Cowboys. You get to. and I spent most of my childhood growing up on the Gulf Coast in Mississippi, and moved back to Houston before I joined the military.
So, Bay St. Louis, Gulfport, Biloxi, whereabouts?
Oh, yep. In Gaucher, right next to Pascagoula.
Okay. All right. I lived in Hattiesburg for about 6 years.
Oh yeah. It's a great place to grow up. You're just running around in the swamps as a kid and just having a good old time. And that's one of those weird culture things too. Growing up, I know the age I'm at, I'm supposed to be in that millennial generation, but the iPhone didn't even come out until I got back from my deployment in Iraq. So I didn't grow up with any of that.
I understand.
Well, Jake was rubbing rocks together back in the day. So
make fire.
Yeah. Yeah. We got thrown outside and said, don't come back until the sun goes down, man. Like this.
That's right. Well, hey, being down there on the Gulf Coast, at least you wasn't from Wool Market, and it gets washed off the map every 2 or 3 years by a hurricane.
Yeah, yeah. But that's a real thing, that upsets your summer every summer.
Yes.
You see all these things, the kids outside playing baseball and doing this, and you're out helping your dad put, plywood over the windows.
Yes. Well, hey, Stephen, for our aspiring illustrators and writers out there, what's 3 bits of wisdom that you could give to them before they start their journey?
I mean, with anything, it's always the first step is practice, right? You got to get in your 10,000 hours and do those things. Even me coming back to the art life and drawing and painting, I had to go back through those motions again. I picked them up, relatively quick, and then started moving on to newer and better things. But if you don't make it a part of your daily ritual and your daily life, it's not going to catch. And nothing just comes out of thin air. You're not just sitting there and then all of a sudden, eureka! I've got the greatest story in the world, and I'm going to start drawing the Da Vinci masterpiece and all this kind of stuff. It takes going through it. It takes drawing those sheets and looking at it and going, nah, that's trash. Throw it in the trash can and picking it up again. And it's interesting because after the military, that's really where I think I had a better line on how I could actually do this. I was like, I've been through military planning and all this other kind of stuff. I can actually set that up. And maybe I should start doing drills. Let's do anatomy drills. Let's do this. Let's do this kind of thing. And if I found a technique that I haven't tried before, I'm like, okay, all next week I'm going to try that technique, and then I'm going to track myself and see if I get better and see if it sticks, see if it's something I don't want to do, So that organization, that structure, and those kind of things really helped out when I started kicking back into it.
All right, cool.
Yeah, but see, sometimes it works out just jumping into things, not working with it every day. Because Jake and I spent 2 years in the chat room on YouTube, and then all of a sudden we're on episode like 8 right now. All of a sudden we jumped right in. We're a podcast.
Yeah,
it wasn't something we worked. That's nothing we talk about daily. It's okay, do this, and here we are.
Absolutely, putting that pen to paper and putting in the work. That's always the best you can do, because you're going to screw things up. You're going to get them wrong. You're going to go through this whole process, but trying to like educate yourself and to learn, in some other manner, it just really doesn't stick. It's once you start going through those motions and you start physically doing it, that all of a sudden now you're like, okay. And it's another thing, just like, with the military, always practice the basics. Just do the basics. I'll sit there and draw simple shapes, in my free time. If I have that minute, I'll sit down and do like a little practice and make simple things and work that way. Because the more you refine the basics, then you can start branching out and saying, oh, you know what, I could do this, or maybe I could take this and make it, work this way. But if you don't have that foundation, well, now you're just going anywhere, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, this will be on YouTube forever. So, and our producer's putting up the links to all your works. Want to thank you for coming on here this evening. It's been good. I have actually never, except for guys from my own unit, I have never actually run into anybody that trolled around the streets of Bakuba and in Diala province. So it's good to see you again. And everybody that's listening online, if you're on YouTube, make sure and you hit the like and subscribe. And
I did that.
Absolutely.
Hey.
And we have we've got free issues up there on Global Comics. The first out of the main series, The Tale of Philip Kirshner. That first issue is free. There's so many different ways that, if you want to purchase PDFs, you want to subscribe, you want to donate, you can do those things. Global Comics is great about, giving you different options on what you want to do. And and then we go to different comic conventions throughout the year. We've got 2 scheduled this year: Plastic City out in near Boston in July, and then we'll be going to Veteran Comic-Con in November in San Francisco. And one of the things that we do is we sell advertising space in the comics for small businesses. So if you're a veteran business and you want to support us, we'll put your ads in these print editions.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, man, great talking to you.
Great talking to you too. Thanks for letting me on.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. And hey, Stephen, what show was this again?
Number 399.
Woo, close.
Yes.
We wanted 400, but the boss, had to cancel it.
Yeah, it just didn't happen that way.
I think he really just wanted to screw us out of 400, but it's neither here or there.
We're going to hit the outro real quick once you hang in the green room, and we'll see you there in a couple minutes.
All right.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
All right.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.